Hello, it's Tuesday, September 17th. We're getting ready to make a bunch of cuts with our miter saw, which I've already started to take apart. I thought, hey, let's make a video. So I've had this thing probably, gosh, close to 30 years, and I've never done any maintenance to it. Not the first thing. So why not take the opportunity to lube the thing up? And I got some truing up to do here. Let me show you what I'm talking about. All right, let me see if I can show you this without too much difficulty. So there's an unevenness to this thing, and it's been that way since I bought it. And it's not that big of a deal, but what I want to do is I want to put a table on here, and I've done this in the past. So what happens is when you put something down on here and tighten it down to this rubs on it so hard you can't turn it because this is lower than that. So I'm going to see if I could fix that. I think I can. So we start by taking off the motor. We're going to take off this fence, and I want to see what it takes to remove this piece. Or I'm not exactly sure what I want to do, but I'm fortunate enough to have that milling machine so I could face this thing. And if I could take off a few thousandths of an inch on this thing and true it up, that would be pretty cool. There's a possibility I'll ruin this thing altogether, but hopefully that won't be the case. So let's see how this goes. Oh gosh, this is about as low tech as it gets. So the table has a little flange in it, and there's no bushing to it or anything. It's just aluminum against aluminum. Oh, wait a minute, I stand corrected. It does have these. It looks like steel. All right, I'm a little bit impressed with that. So we got some wear pads there. So that'll slide better than aluminum on aluminum. And it's really lacking in lubrication. Any little bit of grease that was here has all been hardened up. Center is just a pin. It's a bolt that's captive in the casting down there, so you don't need to put a wrench underneath to tighten it, which is kind of handy. This has got a lock nut on it that takes I guess that's an 8mm bolt with a 13mm deep socket, and you just take the nut off from the top of there, and this whole thing comes off. So that's pretty neat, man. So this thing is sitting on a old projector stand that I picked up for like 10 bucks somewhere, and I just used drywall screws and screwed this thing down to the sheet metal years ago as something I thought I wanted to do, and maybe there's a dirt dauber nest under it. Maybe you know, just as a temporary thing, and it ended up just staying there for 30 years. There's the lock nut. So I think the way this is made, this is sturdy enough that if I snug this, after cleaning it of course, if I snug this down, I could mill the whole surface and it should hold itself pretty good. Now there's not that much thickness to this metal. But what I'd also like to do is mill the top of this table just a few thousandths of an inch more than flush. So what I think I'm going to try doing after I clean it, reassemble this thing, mill the whole thing completely flat, and then add some extra little shim thickness to this, like maybe some tape or something, just to give it a few thousandths. That way I won't have interference when I put my table across here. So, oh, and here's the detent ball and spring that goes in that hole that drops into these holes as its detents. And I noticed that there's a set screw on the top, so I guess you can adjust how hard that detent snaps in those holes. Cool. Okay, so we're gonna give this a go. I was able to get this bolted down to the table, and we're snug. And we're snug. I don't want to over tighten it because we could be bowing it. We're free, and the table does traverse far enough to catch the whole thing. We've got our fly cutter at our furthest point that I'm comfortable with doing. I've locked my quill, and now we are going to have to raise the table until we start to touch. And let's see if I can do this without killing myself. I've already double checked that I'm going to clear that fold down. All right, we're just touching. All right, there's one little. Yeah, it's kind of scary, isn't it? Let's just double check one more time here. Yeah, plenty of room. All right, so I'm skimming off the bottom here, so we have a fighting chance of, you know, being able to do the top and having it come out straight. All right, I'm gonna have to stop here so I can pay attention to what I'm doing, and I gotta traverse in two different directions. So it's what you'd expect. I hope I'm not bowing that thing, but we are high on that little corner right there. One little piece of stalactite there. That little spot. I haven't got to the back yet. A couple little dings here and right there. So we're gonna level this whole thing off before we get started, and then we're gonna flip it and see how level this thing is before we go too far. I removed a total of 30 thousandths, which is about a spark plug gap, and it looks good. It's nice and even. I'm gonna get myself a small file and take off these sharp edges so I don't hurt myself. And we're gonna flip it over and compare it to the flat surface of my table and see if I was bowing it with these clamps. And if there's any significant bow that I'm not comfortable with, we might just stop here. If it seems okay, the next step is gonna be, this fly cutter is not gonna be big enough to reach around this and get back there. So I'm gonna have to come up with something. And if I can't, then I just will stop here. Well, I hated to do it, but I took a boring bar and I heated it up with a torch and bent it so it would reach. And now I'm using it as a fly cutter, and it seems to work pretty good. Let me get this thing. Well, it wasn't squeaking like that a little while ago. This is going to be interesting. Okay, I'm an idiot. Dang it. The only cutter I have requires me to run the machine in reverse, and just out of habit, I flicked the machine forward, so I'm running the damn thing the wrong direction. So now it's cutting pretty decent. Wow, that came out nice. I mean, it looks like hell, but it's only because of the overlaps in the pattern. But I can just barely feel, that ain't even a thousandth of an inch variation there. All right, so now that it's even, I need to take this thing off and put some little tiny spacers in there to elevate this part just a little bit, so I'll have some clearance between this and that. All right, that was actually pretty darn easy. I got 2 layers of masking tape, that blue masking tape, and that should be about 10/1000ths of an inch. And now we're going to put the top back on and give it another go, and that should do it. Well, it's doing what we were hoping it would be doing, and we're milling some off the table, the rotary table piece, and it's not hitting over here. Cutting okay. I adjusted the table so we're only cutting 5/1000ths of an inch, not the full 10 that we raised this up. So we're going to go 2 passes at 5/1000ths a piece. Well, you know what? All things considered, and with this Mickey Mouse tooling that I've got, and this really light, thin aluminum, that came out really, really good. I mean, this is like flawless here. I can't even feel that. That I just barely can feel. This is maybe a little, you know, I can feel that. But wow, finally tuned up my miter saw. Now we're going to clean up. I got a lot of crud on the floor here. I'm going to take a break and clean up so I don't have to keep stepping in it. And then we're going to put this thing together. All right. I've used this orbital sander on aluminum before, and it makes for a really nice finish. I'm going to give it a shot and see what it does on here. Because the only area on this whole thing that I really can feel anything significant is this little spot right here. And I'd like to smooth that out. All right, we're going together. I removed the tape, and now we got a real thin coat of grease on those wear points and this bolt and the circumference of this register right here. Don't need to have too much in there. It's just sawdust is going to stick to it. And yeah, I guess, yeah, we're ready for that. And that sander did a great job. Okay, we got the table on, and it's just a lock nut that you adjust to get the right friction that you want on the table. It's not high-end stuff, but it works. We've got our little wear ring in here. A very light coat of grease on it. The spring's in place. We're clean. And this is going to be a two-hander, so I'm not going to be able to record that like most of the stuff I do. We got our detent ball in there, just a little blob of grease at that. And I got a light coat of grease on this bolt and in the hole that it pivots in. So this stop nut here is also an adjustment. You crank it down to get the desired tightness on there. If it's too tight, the saw won't move. Too loose, you'll end up with some play. Okay, so I feel a little bit of drag on that right now. Just back it off just a hair. I like it. Okay, so this screw is the stop that keeps this thing from flipping all the way back. That's what's hitting on that. Hallelujah. And there's the adjustment to true up 0 on the tilt angle. And here's an adjustment on this tilt angle here, that is. And that would be the 45-degree stop. That's calibrated. I calibrated that a long time ago, and it's probably still correct. So I'm not going to mess with that, at least not for now. This is the stop for how deep it goes down. Okay, if it goes too far, you're gonna, So that's been adjusted a long time ago, and I don't think I need to mess with that. What I'd like to do next, my feet are killing me and I'm pretty tired, is take the top off and grease the gears. I might save that for another day. This is the fence that goes behind the blade. I didn't realize, and it looks like it's never had it since this thing was new, that there should be 2 of these screws, one there, and that one's still got the original paint in the hole, so that tells you. This is one that's got a little rust mark on it. That goes in there, that guy goes there, and that is the friction brake for the rotation. It just rubs on this surface right here. And that's going to be a two-hander, so we're going to lay that on top of there and then put the 2 cap screws. That's going to need to be calibrated to give us a 90-degree cut, and I'll show you how we do that in a minute. All right, this saw has there's a set screw in here and here that this screw hits. So if those are calibrated correctly and you go all the way back, it'll make a perfect 90-degree cut, and all the way to the front it'll make a perfectly 90-degree cut, and anywhere in the middle you'll have to calibrate it. So I'm just going to put it all the way to the back, and then we're going to tighten these guys up, and then we're going to start making some test cuts to see how accurate our stops are on those. got her bolted down with real nuts and bolts, not drywall screws. And I put a piece of 5/8 plywood down because this is just thin sheet metal, and that doesn't kind of work out so good. But now we're finally, after 20 some odd years of sitting on this thing, we finally got a decent mounting, and it's nice, man. It's nice and smooth every way. I still haven't greased the gears and the motor and all that stuff. I'm probably not going to get around to that this go around, although that's also probably the most important thing I should be doing. But I got to get back to working on the house. But what I was going to show you, and this piece is really not big enough. I took the fence and I put it all the way back against the set screws. And what I'm going to do is take a cut, right? And this is a parallel piece. I'm quite certain this is something that I cut. So take a cut like this, and then you flip it over and you cut again, cut a sliver, and you measure both sides of the sliver. If the thickness remains the same, you're right on 90. All right, so I am within 0.005 of an inch from one side to the next, and that's close enough for me. It's more accurate when you do that. The longer the piece of wood, the more accurate your calibration will be. But I've had this set up a long time ago, so I'm comfortable with that. Now, we're on to the whole reason why I started this is I want to build a table on here. And I got the wood cut, and you know what? I just set it over there, and I was wondering what that was for. Let's see if we can get that stuff mounted on here and actually work for us. I want to embed a tape measure into it so I can read the lengths. And I've got an idea on how to do that. I just don't know if it's going to pan out. Let's get this party started, as they say, right? So we got this guy. One of the things I haven't liked about what I used to have on here, I had just a 1x2 sticking out this side with a tape measure nailed to the top of it, a piece of a tape measure. But the tail end here, wood would always drop. So this time I'm going to make this table overhang some. All right, I just have to figure out where I want to do this and how I want to do this. This is coming out really well. I'm happy with it so far. I had planned on embedding this piece of tape measure that I sacrificed from an old tape right here in the bottom, but I'm second guessing that decision. I think I might prefer it on the back so it won't collect chips. I'm going to hold off on this for now, because I want to work with it and make sure that I actually like this thing. And yeah, it's really nice and sturdy, and it also nice and straight. And let's check the back, I guess. Yeah. Okay. And it rotates freely, something I've never had before. This is going to break eventually, this cheap plastic thing. So, you know what? Probably I should put another screw right here and over here. Just to take that out of it. I'm using 1032 screws here with lock nuts. So far, so good. Very good. Nice and solid. The whole thing, best it's ever been since I've owned it. All right, we're gonna leave that. This one I couldn't countersink with the original setup because the drill motor got in the way, the height of the motor. But I've got this handy dandy piece of all thread and a 1/4 inch drill chuck screwed to the end with a lock nut. And that allowed me to get right in there just like I needed to. All right, that's enough of this. I think we're going to just use it like it is for a while. And next thing I need to do, I'm going to make a stop for this that I can clamp something. It'll look something like this that I could clamp on there and make my cuts. All will come out exactly the same. Well, that's about as done enough as I'm going to get on this thing. I found this at Home Depot. I started out loving it, but not quite so much. The paint comes right off of this with some, I mean, look at how it's all smudged right there. And I was being careful this time. That's version 2.0. Look at the first one. I got brake clean on it. And it instantly took the damn ink right off the darn thing. But other than that, it's perfect, I guess. I got it calibrated in. It's, you know, it's going to do what it needs. I ended up cutting this when I took it apart. I thought that was a good idea. But then these two ends got a little unstable. So I glued that back together with some super glue and a little shim that I made. And we're stable. We're done.